Tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow is election day. Today is November 2nd, 2020, and tomorrow is November 3rd, 2020, which is election day. So today is the last day that we're going to have to wait before we finally get the election results starting tomorrow. I don't think the results of the election will be fully determined by tomorrow. I think some of the states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, they have to wait a few extra days to finish counting up all of their mail-in ballots, but a lot of the states will get the results for tomorrow. But I am making this video because even though I'm not really changing much of my predictions from my previous election prediction video, I wanted to go into more detail in this video. And in this video, I will also be giving my prediction for the popular vote for each candidate, as well as how many people I think will vote in total in this presidential election. So let's get into this now. I have quite a bit to talk about, so let's begin. Like always, I will start with the safe states. These are states where I'm 100% sure that that the state will vote for Joe Biden, which in this case is the Democrat. So let's begin shading those in solid blue. Washington, Oregon, California, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. So I'm not really doing this based on what I think the margin will be between Joe Biden and Donald Trump's total vote count in these states. I'm doing it based on how likely I think it is that either candidate will win a specific state. So every state that I have shaded in blue, that includes Illinois, New York, and Hawaii, all of these states, I am next to 100% sure that they will vote for Joe Biden tomorrow. Now, for safe Republican states, these include Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, North Dakota, South Dakota, Nebraska, excluding the 2nd Congressional District, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Indiana, Missouri, Alaska. Every state currently shaded in solid red on this map on screen, these are states where I'm 100% sure that all the states shaded in red will vote for Donald Trump tomorrow in the 2020 presidential election. Next, we're going to go to the states that I think I'm not 100% sure that they will vote for Joe Biden, but I'm fairly sure that they will vote for Joe Biden. I'm like 80 to 90% sure they will vote for Joe Biden. Before we get to that, though, I would like to mention that 3 states that would normally be categorized under the likely category, I'm now going to put in the safe category for this presidential election specifically, just because of how low Donald Trump's approval rating is as of now compared to during the rest of his presidency. I think the last few months have not been great for him. I think a lot of people are not happy with the way he handled COVID-19, and that is the number one reason why his re-election chances aren't very good. And that is one of the reasons why I think Joe Biden will do a lot better in this presidential election than Hillary Clinton did 4 years ago, and will more likely than not win this presidential election. So Virginia, Colorado, New Mexico are all safe. But now for the likely states, this includes every state not currently shaded on the map that Hillary Clinton won in 2016, which includes Nevada, New Hampshire, Minnesota, and Maine. And then Maine's first district, I didn't shade this in earlier, but that's also a safe win for Joe Biden at this point. So every state that Hillary Clinton won in 2016, I think is either a likely win for Joe Biden or a safe win for Joe Biden. The reason why I'm saying this is because Joe Biden's chances of getting elected now are a lot better than Clinton's chance of getting elected back in 2016. So it makes sense that Joe Biden would have a good chance of winning every state that Clinton won in 2016. And the reason why this is the case is, like I said, Trump did not do a very good job of handling COVID-19 according to many people. A lot of people aren't happy with the way he handled it, so his approval rating is not looking very good right now. Likely states for Republican, this is actually different from what I said in my previous video. In my previous video, I put Texas likely, but not Iowa or Ohio, but I'm changing that. Iowa I'm putting as likely, Ohio I'm putting as likely, and the reason why I'm changing my mind on these 2 states is because I looked at the trends from between the 2012 and 2016 elections, presidential elections, and I saw how much Iowa and Ohio shifted towards the right between those 2 elections. Iowa went from voting for Obama in 2012 by several points to voting in Trump in 2016 by several points. Same with Ohio. Just the fact that it shifted so much to the right between those 2 elections, I think that it's not that likely that Joe Biden will win these 2 states because they both were won by 8 percentage points or more by Trump in 2016, even when Obama won them in 2012. So those 2 are likely, but what I'm going to put as lean are both Texas and Georgia. And the reason why I'm putting these as lean is even though they've consistently voted for Republicans previous presidential elections, all the trends show that they've been consistently moving more towards the left, more towards the Democrats. Like, look at difference between 2012 and 2016 in terms of how Texas voted and how Georgia voted. Both of those states went several points to the left, percentage points to the left between 2012 and 2016. Texas went from voting for Romney by around 15 percentage points to voting for Trump by only around 9 percentage points. Georgia also shifted a bit to the left, although not as much as Texas, but Georgia went from voting for Romney by about 8 percentage points to voting for Trump by about 5 percentage points. So if these trends continue, you would expect Trump to win both of these states, but not by that much. There are some polls that show that Joe Biden has a good chance in winning in either Texas or Georgia, but personally, I don't think that's the case. I think Trump is going to win both of these states more likely than not. Lean Democrat now. These include Arizona and the rest of the Rust Belt. And the reason why I think that the Rust Belt is going to vote for Joe Biden more likely than not is because even in 2016, when Hillary Clinton wasn't nearly as good of a candidate compared to Joe Biden, according to most people, she was still able to almost win these three Rust Belt states. Trump only won these states by around 1 percentage point, but the fact is that Joe Biden's doing 3 to 4 percentage points better compared to Clinton 4 years ago. So if you just take that trend into account, all of these three states in the Rust Belt should vote for Joe Biden. For Arizona, it's a similar story to Texas and Georgia. It's because of the trends that have been taking place in the last few years. Even though Arizona has been consistently voting for Republicans, I think now it'll finally flip to voting for Joe Biden, voting for Democrats. And the reason why this is the case is because you look at 2012, you look at 2016, Arizona shifted several points to the left, several points to the Democrats. And if that trend were to keep up now up until 2020, then you would expect Arizona to vote for Joe Biden in this presidential election. So I'm putting Arizona and all of the Rust Belt as lean Democrats. And I'm also going to put North Dakota, Nebraska's second congressional district, lean for Democrats, Joe Biden, because that's what all the polls show. All the polls show Joe Biden up here by a few percentage points, and that's also what the trends show. I think that not North Dakota, Nebraska's second congressional district shifted to the left by multiple percentage points between 2012 and 2016, similar to these southern states. Now, it might not be like a long-term trend, it might have just been a short-term trend, but that is what the polls show, that is what the past election data shows, that is more likely than not that Nebraska's second district will vote for Joe Biden. And now we're going to go to tilt for Democrats and then tilt for Republicans. So these are states where it's almost 50-50. It could go either way, but it barely leans in one direction or the other. For Florida, it barely leans in favor of Joe Biden. Even though in 2016 Trump won this state, in 2018 the Republicans won this state in the midterms, I still think that Joe Biden will win this state just by a tiny margin because Trump only won this state by a bit over 1 percentage point, and the fact that Joe Biden's doing around 3 percentage points better now than Clinton did 4 years ago, I think that's enough evidence to show that Florida will probably just barely edge out for Biden, but I would not at all be surprised if it voted for Trump. That is definitely a possibility. It is right on the edge between Donald Trump and Joe Biden for the state of Florida. We just have to see what happens tomorrow. And for tilt Republicans, tilt for Donald Trump, that would just be the state of North Carolina. And the only reason why I'm not putting this in Joe Biden's category, in Joe Biden's column, is because of the fact that even when Mitt Romney was several points down against Obama back in 2012, even when Obama won in quite a decisive victory against Romney 8 years ago, Romney was still able to win the state of North Carolina, even when he was several points down in the nationwide general popular vote. So I'm putting North Carolina tilt Donald Trump. But just like Florida, I would not be surprised if this were to vote for Joe Biden. I would not be remotely surprised if Florida or North Carolina went either way. Those states are both right on the edge. It's a 50-50 win, 50-50 chance that either candidate wins both of those states. Last, not even a state, it's the congressional district, Maine second. I'm going to put this as maybe lean Republican. I'm on the edge between tilt and lean because even though Trump won this region pretty decisively in 2016, the polls show that it's a lot less likely compared to 2016 in 2020 that Donald Trump wins this region. Although I still think Donald Trump is more likely to win this region than Joe Biden, there's always the chance that Joe Biden could pull off a surprise victory in that region. Not that it matters, it only has one electoral vote, but I'm just going to put it as lean Donald Trump because I think that's what the evidence shows. That's what the evidence shows, the fact that Donald Trump will probably win this region by maybe like 3 percentage points or something, maybe 4 percentage points. I'm not exactly sure. There's not that much data on that region, but that's my prediction. It's basically the same as my last video, but in my last video, I put Ohio and Iowa as lean. Now I'm putting them as likely. I put Texas as likely in my last video. Now I'm putting as lean. But other than that, my prediction stands: Republican 219, Democrats 319. Now, the last thing that I will talk about in this video is one, what I think the total voter turnout will be, as in how many people will vote in this presidential election, and two, how many votes are going to go towards Joe Biden, how many votes are going to go towards Donald Trump, and how many votes are going to go towards third-party candidates, or what percentage, I guess, would go towards all of those candidates: Biden, Trump, third party. So, first of all, I think the popular vote will be won by Joe Biden. That I am next to 100% sure. 538.com gives Joe Biden a 97% chance of winning the popular vote. The fact that Clinton won the popular vote in 2016 when she was not doing as well 4 years ago as Joe Biden is now, I think that's enough evidence to show that Joe Biden will easily win the popular vote. The question is not who will win the popular vote. The question is how much will Joe Biden win the popular vote by? And I think that it will be 5 to 6 percentage points for Joe Biden, maybe around 5.5 percentage points for Joe Biden in Joe Biden's favor. So Joe Biden gets 5.5% more votes in terms of the popular vote than Donald Trump will. Around there, that's what the polls are showing, like 7 to 8 percentage points in favor of Joe Biden, but I personally think it'll be closer to maybe 6 percentage points or 5. Not exactly sure if it'll be closer to 5 or 6, but in that general range is what I think will happen. In terms of the percentage of votes that each candidate gets, I think for Donald Trump, it'll be somewhere around 45%. In 2016, he got 46%, but I think that most of the people that voted for Donald Trump in 2016 will vote for him again now. So, but a few people will switch sides to vote for Joe Biden or third party. So, Donald Trump 45%, Joe Biden I think will get 51% ish, maybe slightly less or slightly more than that. So, that would mean that the margin between Trump and Biden would be around 6 percentage points. So, 45 to 51, 6 percentage point margin. And then in terms of third party votes, that would leave around maybe 4% of the remaining votes would be third party votes. So Joe Biden 51, Donald Trump 45, third party 4. 45%, 51%, 4%. Third party vote might actually be slightly less than that. I feel like a lot of people are going to take one side or the other. They don't think that voting for third party is a good idea because in general, third-party candidates have basically no shot of winning a presidential election. The closest that a third party came to winning in recent history was Ross Perot in 1992, but ever since then, there's never been a third-party candidate that had any chance of winning at all. The third-party candidates, as a whole, will get around 4% of the total votes casted in this presidential election. So this includes the Libertarian Party nominee, Jo Jorgensen, the Green Party nominee, Howie Hawkins, and every other third party that is having a candidate run for president in this presidential election. So I'm saying every single third party, every single party that's not the Democrats or the Republicans, if you combine all of the votes casted for them, they will add up to around 4% of the total votes casted. Probably slightly less than that, maybe closer to 3% of the total votes casted, but it's not going to be a large number. It's definitely not going to be nearly as many as the number of third party votes casted in 2016. A lot more people see that there's more on the line for this presidential election than there was 4 years ago, so they're going to be more likely to take a side in this presidential election and less likely to vote for a third-party candidate. The final part of this video is where I talk about how many votes do I think will be casted in total for the 2020 presidential election. So 4 years ago, for the 2016 presidential election, around 136 million votes were casted. So I think for this presidential election, the one that's coming up tomorrow, I think that the number will definitely be more than 136 million. I am almost 100% sure that it'll be at least 140 million. But if I had to make a prediction, I would assume that the number of votes that are going to be casted for this presidential election, at the end, when all is said and done, it'll be around 10% more than the number of votes casted in the 2016 presidential election 4 years ago. So 10% of 136 million is 13.6 million. If you add that to 136 million, 136 million plus 13.6 million is around 150 million. So if I had to predict how many votes are going to be casted in total for this presidential election, I would predict somewhere between 150 and 155 million, maybe even somewhere between 154 and 156 million, somewhere in that range. I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen, but that is what I would predict. As of now, in fact, the number of votes that have been casted are already almost 100 million, and that is because of things such as early voting and mail-in ballots. So the number of votes that have already been casted is over 50% of the total number of votes that will be casted when all is said and done. I just thought that was pretty interesting, but let's just see what happens.